Excellent work. Now let's deal with our calculations. So what I would want to do, instead of iterating one more time over the repos using the reduce or map or whatever, I would want to get those stars for each and every item in the iteration when I'm getting the language. And there are two things to it. First, we need to check what is the property that is responsible for those stars. So that tells me how many stars the repo has. That's number one. And number two, we need to decide how we're going to set up that object. Now, the property we're looking for is stargazers count. So that just tells me how many stars that particular repo got. So if we take a look at the repos, I can see that I'm destructuring the language, but I also could destructure stargazers count, correct? So stargazers, gazers, and then count. Okay, good. So once we destructure this particular property, what are we doing next? Well, remember that first instance when we're setting up, when we're saying if the language is not there, then we're creating one. Now, not only I could set up value as 1, I could get that initial count because this is going to be the first time as we're setting up the language. So I'm just saying, yeah, get me how many stars this repo has as well. And I'm going to set this up as a stars property. So I'm going to say stars and then stargazers count. Of course, that is my property. And then now when the language is already on object, what I would want to do? Well, now not only I would want to add +1 to the value, I also would want to update the stars, correct? Because of course that new repo does have some kind of stars, even if it's 0. So in here we'll say total, then language, so that stays the same. Then I'm looking for stars property, since that's the one that I'm looking for. I'm not looking for the value anymore. I'm looking for the stars, and this is going to be equal to plus whatever is in this iteration. So again, same stargazers count. Okay, let's save that. And now, of course, we can just take a look before we change anything around in the languages. So we're going to go with log, and that is going to be equal to a languages. And you'll see that the only thing that has changed is the fact that we added that stars property in there. So we still have our object. Now, instead of just a label and the value, the ones that the chart requires, we also have the stars. So we have 412 for the CSS, and then, for example, for JavaScript, we have 376. And once we know that, of course, we can head back to a repos and change some stuff around, where instead of overriding the languages, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to rename it. It's not going to be languages anymore. It is going to be const, and we'll call this most used, which of course is going to signal that that is most used language. So instead of languages, instead of overriding the languages like we did before, we can also maybe use const over here. And we're still using the object values and all that. We're still passing in the languages object. And in this case, however, we're getting back most used. So of course, in our chart, we also need to change that, where I'm going to say most used. So as far as the values, this shouldn't change for our first chart. However, this allows us to set up a new variable where we're also going to use the same languages object. Because we need to keep in mind that if we would have left the previous setup, then of course I would just be using the languages that I'm getting back after these calculations. So let's add a comment here and say most stars per language. And let's say most popular. So const most popular. And that is equal to, again, object.values. So we're doing the same thing, object.values, and we're passing in the languages. So we're still getting the same objects. And as always, we can console log it just so we know that we're all are on the same page. So let's say most popular, like so. And we're going to see that, yeah, it is still an array with 3 items, and then label JavaScript value as well as the stars. However, now I would want to sort them based on the stars. So not on the values. I would want to sort them based on stars. How do we do that? Well, we could, again, chain and the same setup. Only in this case, we're not looking for the value property. We're looking for the stars. So we chain dot sort, then that is looking for the callback function. And then in that callback function, we should decide how we would want to sort it. So again, I'm going to go with A, B. So first item and the second item, and then just return B stars minus A stars, A stars. So that's just going to make sure that we have the values that start from biggest and then end up with the smallest one. And now, of course, I would just want to iterate and set up a new order. Why? Well, because if I'm looking at my most popular, the one thing that is missing, that stars should be in the value, correct? Because that's the one that my chart is looking for. Chart is not looking for the stars. Chart is looking for the value property. So what we could do is we could just flip them. So whatever values we have for the actual value, we'll assign them to A stars. And the way we do that is by using the map. Then in each and every iteration, I can access the item, of course. So I'm going to say item here. And then from the iteration, I would still want to return the object, same object. I would want to copy all the values. However, I will overwrite the value property with item.stars. So I'm taking the value of this property and just assigning it to a value property. Why? Because that's the one that the chart is looking for. That's why we'll return from the map. And now, of course, see in a console that we have the value is 412, then 376, and then, of course, 34. Now you might be wondering, okay, but our value for the language disappeared. Well, we don't need that. I only need the stars. I just added it to a first iteration because I didn't see the point of setting up a new reduce function, but the one that I'm looking for is the stars. Now I cannot really rename the stars because my chart is looking for the value property. And the last thing that I would want is, again, to make sure that I only have 5 languages. So I'm going to go with slice 0 and then 5. And now, of course, we can delete the console log. And then instead of chart data, let's pass our most popular, like so. And now, of course, I can get rid of my inspect. And there it is. Now, not only we show how many repos are with JavaScript or CSS or HTML, we also show the combined value of the stars for those languages. So, for example, all the repos that have the language of CSS have combined total of 412 stars. JavaScript has 376, and HTML has only 34.